Today on Lynn's Warriors, we are honored to welcome back Lori Cohen, CEO of PACT, that is Protect All Children from Trafficking, founded in 1991 and one of the leading organizations fighting child trafficking, exploitation, and abuse around the world. At a time when children are facing so many growing threats, whether it's online, offline, through trafficking, grooming, exploitation, and digital predation, organizations like PACT are working tirelessly to protect our youth, our vulnerable youth, and educate and support prevention efforts and build global partnerships focused basically on safeguarding all of our children. Today, we'll discuss Lori's leadership, PACT's mission, the future children are facing in today's rapidly changing environment, the importance, so important, the upcoming, just around the corner, Freedom Awards, June 3rd, everybody, 2026. As I said, right around the corner, an event right here in New York City recognizing those committed to protecting children and confronting exploitation head on, always and always also encouraging and supporting survivors. This conversation is not only about awareness, it is about responsibility and the urgent need for all of us to stand together in the defense of children. The website, wearepact.org. Lori is also on LinkedIn. I'm going to have it all in the body of the video. We want to get right to it. Lori is a very busy woman, so let's welcome Lori Cohen back to the Warriors. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Lynn. It's such a pleasure to be back and such an honor to be partnering with Lynn's Warriors.
Well, thank you, Lori. We just adore you because you're one of our ultimate warriors. I want to talk a little bit about you because, I remember I spoke to you once in the past and it really stuck in my head. When you started all of this, you said you didn't even recognize like what trafficking is, and how people even recognize they're trafficked. So look, you're a nationally recognized advocate. Explain to us what that meant. Because I know it sticks in my head when you said you didn't even, somebody who's been, at the forefront, understand in the beginning about all this. So explain a little bit about yourself and how you really came to be a leader in this movement, I guess we'll call it.
Thank you, Lynn. I do think it's safe to say that I became an accidental advocate because I'm an attorney. When I was in law school, I had never learned what human trafficking was. And even after law school, working with clients, no one ever spoke to me about this. It wasn't anything that we discussed. And honestly, I don't think I even really understood that this crime existed until I had a client in my office in front of me. I was working at a domestic violence organization. I had been referred a client who needed help. She was a victim of very severe abuse by her boyfriend. She actually was pregnant by this boyfriend, and he had been beating her very severely. And there's never an excuse, never an explanation of why someone should beat another human being, especially a pregnant woman. But I just asked her what she thought had led to that. And she explained to me that her boyfriend had been making her have sex with other men, and he took money from the other men. And when she became pregnant by the boyfriend, he realized he wasn't going to make money from her while she was pregnant. And so he was beating her to try to force an abortion. And that's why she ran away, actually, because he had been beating her before. But when she realized this was going to put her baby's life at risk, she took matters into her own hands and fled. And I really didn't understand what was going on. I mean, I was horrified. I was so filled with admiration that this woman would take such risks to get away from this incredibly abusive person. But she didn't have the vocabulary. She didn't really even understand that it was prostitution. And to me, what was even more disturbing was the police report didn't recognize it. And she had appeared in court on a domestic violence matter. The judge didn't recognize it. The social workers who she was initially referred to didn't know about it. Like, the whole system had failed this woman who was
Yeah.
trying to get out of an abusive situation. And that really forced me to do some research and understand what was going on. And I learned from the hands of real experts. I learned from survivors. And I think it's safe to say that most of what I've learned in this work came from survivors. And it's a tough way to learn, but I think for PACT, it's been really helpful because I continue to look to survivors for guidance.
Yeah, Lori, I'm glad you said that because I mean, I haven't been trafficked. I don't think you've been trafficked,
No.
or abused or any of that, right? How can but we're doing this work, prevention, awareness, education. We have to use survivors. We have to rely on their stories, their lived experiences. It's tough. How else can we do it? I think every organization really has to be, survivor led, a big part of everything, and I talk to a lot of survivors. Um, so you've seen the landscape obviously change over the years. I want to go back to your story. There were no tools, and like, what did you do that with that horrifying story? Like, where did you turn? Where did you go with this woman? Like, I know you were like understanding it and doing research, and then eventually with survivors, but like, there was nothing to go to basically, or a justice system that even understood this.
I mean, here was a pregnant woman who was late in the pregnancy, very badly beaten, had suffered a lot. Miraculously, the baby was not harmed. Uh, but she was very frightened. Her partner was an extremely violent person, and she was in a lot of danger. So the first thing we had to do was find shelter for her. And in New York, as in many other states, there's a shortage of shelters available for single women without children. Now, this woman was on the point of having a baby, but she didn't have the baby yet. And so since she didn't have the baby, she wasn't technically eligible for shelter for women with kids. And it made it very challenging. That really pushed us as an organization, and our Survivors Council is constantly speaking with lawmakers about the need to have appropriate shelter services for trafficking victims. And it shouldn't matter if they have a child with them or no children. Many trafficking victims do have children, but oftentimes their traffickers have the kids and they're holding the children hostages. They're using them as pawns to force the mother to continue to be trafficked. And so to require that the trafficking victim have children with them is just not realistic. So it has been an issue and continues to be an issue. But that was our first priority, just to get her somewhere safe. Then we absolutely needed to have urgent medical care to have her examined. She had injuries. Again, the pregnancy really miraculously was not harmed. And shortly after I met her, she did give birth to a beautiful baby girl. And I, I'm just so impressed with this client. It's so much trauma, and yet she gave so much love to that child, and it is very beautiful and inspiring. It makes me really respect the resilience of so many of my clients that they have endured unimaginable abuse. It's almost hard for me to talk about it sometimes because I've heard so much horror that when I speak to somebody who's not familiar with this, they're so shocked. How could one person treat another person so badly? But that abuse is just normalized in this violent world. And despite that, the survivors really are survivors in many ways, and they transcend their abuse and create meaningful and beautiful lives for themselves and their families.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we want to see. That's what it's all about, empowering them, engaging them. People have to also understand the public. This is kind of it's not a one time kind of you save somebody, it's a full on trauma that can sometimes go along and be fine with a survivor. Years later, something hits them. Um, it's a long process. It's a lifelong process. Would you agree with that? In just everything, it's and again, it's things today are being, I think, fueled by the internet, normalization and then habituation of all of this. But let's talk about the wonderful work at PACT. What is your mission statement at PACT? Because you truly are really one of my favorite organizations. I mean, the work is without peer, what you do, Lori. Give us your mission statement.
So our vision is a world in which no child is bought, sold, or used for sex. And our mission is to protect every child's right to grow up free from trafficking and sexual exploitation. Very simple. Should be.
Seems simple.
It seems so simple and so obvious. And why does this continue to be so elusive? So PACT has been in existence, as you mentioned, almost 40 years. We were the first organization in the United States to exist addressing this issue, addressing the need to make sure children are protected from this horrible abuse. And it would be wonderful to think, okay, by the time I joined 6 years ago, we should have been able to say mission accomplished, but we still have our work cut out. And I think one of the things we'll be talking about today is how much more challenging the environment has become and how much more dangerous it's been for our children.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like, Lori, in the last year, it's just kind of been, I don't know how you feel about it. I feel like the last year has become totally different, even more of the Wild West, just things popping up all over. What people never understand, a lot of people don't understand. Explain to us why children today are even more vulnerable than even a year ago, perhaps.
The internet, social media, gaming, our world through all these different social platforms, our world was supposed to become more connected. We were supposed to be able to learn more from each other, engage with each other, and advance. And instead, because we don't have the right regulations in place, we don't have the guardrails in place, our children are being recruited for sexual exploitation. And this is just accepted as the inevitable cost of being an interconnected world online. And PACT is not anti-technology. We're not anti-internet. We're not anti-social media. We recognize that there's tremendous value there. There are huge opportunities to learn and grow. And at the same time, we realize there are responsibilities to make sure our kids are kept safe. So our approach is to look to the internet, to look to online technology, to look to gaming platforms, look to social media, find ways to utilize them and work with young people and engage them to understand what's safe behavior and what are behaviors to be avoided. And we continue to advocate in Washington, D.C. for greater safety provisions so that our kids are not being groomed for sexual abuse on a game, on an online game. Children should not be at risk of this when they're playing with who they think are other children.
Right. I mean, it's happening right under our noses. We think our children are safe in our homes, right? Because they're quiet, they're on a device. And this is where it's all happening. What do you want? What role do you think? So we have parents, we have caregivers, right? We're giving prevention measures, we're talking. What role do you think schools play in all this and just the community or places of worship? Do you think they have a role in helping with all of this?
Schools have an essential role, and of course, we like to think of schools as like reading, writing, arithmetic, but there's so much more. And health and safety is an important message that can be communicated within schools. And online safety can easily be folded into a school curriculum, not as something that's scary, but just online literacy, just as
Yes.
we have reading literacy and math literacy, we want to have online literacy. What do you do if you get a message that asks you to do something inappropriate? Who is a safe adult that you can speak with? And one of the things schools can do is provide a safe space for children, because just as PACT has a survivors council, we have a youth advisory council, and these are high school students and college students who tell us, what do we need to know in order to teach safety to other young people? And what they tell us is they're terrified of their parents. They're so afraid that they're going to get in trouble for doing something wrong, for answering a text message incorrectly, for sharing a photo of themselves that they shouldn't have shared, for responding to a direct message request on a game, right? That they know what the rules are. Kids understand what the rules are, and they know what the rules are from their parents. And if they break that rule, they're so worried about getting in trouble that they don't feel that they can ask their parents for help. So schools can provide that safe, neutral space to help the child get access to resources, and to bring parents in an environment where the child understands that, yes, they understand that they did not do what their parents instructed them to do, but it's not about getting in trouble. It's about making sure the child is safe. And it's also, importantly, information that we provide to schools, but it's information that we provide to parents.
Yeah, I think the parents need a lot of education actually about all of this. I used to think the kids, obviously they do, right? But the parents and grandparents, I have a lot of grandparents, Lori, that are taking care of kids now, or they have time on their hands and they want to help out, and they really want to find out about this and talk to their communities and friends about this, other grandparents. I think we have to all just accept nobody's going to get in trouble. I know it's easy to say that. This is the world we live in, unfortunately, right? But you need to go to that trusted adult. It may not be a parent, it could be an older sibling, it could be an aunt and uncle, it could be a trusted teacher, right? But we have to establish some some pointers for people just so they understand and kids understand what they can do, and parents. What do you think? Tell us why you think this will sound like a simple question to you, but for the public, they have to understand the prevention part of all of this, Laurie. Why this prevention? Why PACT? Why it's so necessary? Why, you have the Freedom Awards coming up next week. Why is that prevention piece so critical?
When I was representing victims, and I, I had the both privilege and really challenging task of representing many different victims of sex trafficking. So many of them, as we were concluding their case and had gotten them into a safe setting, had helped them get the support system they needed, really gave them footing to move forward with their lives. And I think you're right. They will never fully recover, but they will advance. They will build something for themselves despite this very difficult history. And so many of my clients said, why was nothing done to make me know about this, to make me aware of about this before it happened? I didn't know what trafficking was, didn't know what prostitution was. No one had spoken to me about this. If only I had known. And then many of them went a step further and said to me, I want to make sure that this doesn't happen to another girl or boy ever again. And they were very clear that prevention was the key, really trying to go into communities, go to neighborhoods where children were at a heightened risk of exploitation and abuse, work within those communities, work within schools, work within houses of worship, work with families, and get the word out so that people know what to look for. And the goal is to make sure a child is safe before the abuse happens. And I'll share an example of a success story, because one thing I've learned in doing prevention work, it's harder to monitor something when it doesn't happen, right? So if we are successful in prevention, then the child's not trafficked. So what are we noting? How are we identifying this? And you mentioned schools. So many schools, unfortunately, are still reluctant to let us in. They're afraid we're going to say something that maybe if we talk about trafficking, that will make trafficking happen. And we want to shine a light on it. We say it's important to discuss this precisely to stop it from happening. And we did manage to get the support of a school superintendent who saw that this was happening in his school district and was somewhat of a visionary and said, look, our children are being harmed. What can we do? So we engaged in a very intensive education effort. We worked with teachers. We worked with guidance counselors. We worked with the school nurses who sometimes see children coming in with injuries, and school safety officers. And then we worked with teachers where children were encouraged to journal and keep track of their thoughts. And we had a system set up where the child, if they wanted the teacher to read the journal, they could put a Post-it note with a green colored Post-it note, which gave the teacher permission to read it. So in this journal, the child indicated that she was in a very difficult housing situation where she was, there were very tight quarters for the family. There wasn't a lot of space. She was sharing a room with an older uncle, a 12-year-old girl, older uncle, and wrote in the journal she really felt uncomfortable. She didn't feel safe, right? And she wasn't being trafficked, but she was uncomfortable, and she didn't feel like she could tell anyone about this. So the teacher began to work with this student and kept checking in on her and making sure that this child was in a position to really share her feelings. And the child actually was then able to move into another room, and the family made accommodations, and nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. But this child learned that if she feels uncomfortable, she will be listened to, she will be respected, she will be believed, and she was kept safe. And so, do we know that we prevented trafficking? 100%? Would that child have been trafficked? We don't know. But do we know that that child learned something really valuable that will help her in life so that she won't be trafficked in the future? Absolutely. And for us, that was a really important example of prevention at its finest and its safest.
Yeah. And I hope that child, this is always my dream, Lori, then shares that with like her peers. Like if you're uncomfortable, say something,
Yep.
right? Then it just keeps growing, the whole thing. All right, let's switch up gears to the Freedom Awards.
Great.
Up right here in New York City, June 3rd, 6:00. Start filling us in all about 10th anniversary.
It's the 10th anniversary of our Freedom Awards. That this was started as an opportunity to celebrate partners in the movement to end trafficking and exploitation. We very much believe in partnership and celebrating leaders, and we realize we all need to come together. And it's also an opportunity to let people see the range of work that we're doing. This year, we are honoring three, wonderful honorees who represent sort of the scale of work that we're doing. First, we're honoring Audrey Morrissey, who is the director at an organization known as My Life, My Choice. She is a survivor and a pioneer in the movement to give voice to trafficking victims and survivors and help develop educational materials for the community, and is just an inspiring person. She actually was selected by members of our Survivors Council. They were looking at the national landscape of who needs to be celebrated, and they felt very strongly that Audrey represented the highest level of achievement in this movement. We are also honoring American Airlines, and it's I think one of the strengths of PACT is that we work very closely with the private sector and see them as important partners in the movement to end child trafficking and exploitation. That sometimes there's a sense that this has to be only government or only the nonprofit world or only law enforcement. And when we bring in the private sector, we bring in businesses that are able to train their staff, are able to bring thousands of eyes and ears to this issue and mouths to report it. And American Airlines has been a longstanding partner of PACT's and takes training of its staff very seriously and has done a marvelous job raising awareness and setting an example with other airlines as well, and the private sector generally. So we're really thrilled to honor American Airlines as a partner. And then our work also has a very grassroots element. So we work nationally, we work with survivors, we work in Washington, and we're very much connected to the local community. And we're thrilled to honor a local New York partner, the Carroll Gardens Association, which has been a critical partner in helping us provide educational workshops to the local community and getting trust on the ground, getting local people involved, not only to receive information, but to help share that information, has been really a highlight for this organization. So 3 very different aspects of the work that we're doing, 3 very different types of partnerships, and it should be a really joyous evening.
It is fun. I was there last year. There's a lot of energy in the room. It's a feel-good kind of environment. I mean, there's things to bid on, there's food going on, always the necessary drink. It's a happy environment. And I'll have the link to this.
Thank you.
And of course, in the body of the video. And the public needs to understand our warriors out there, especially if you're in the New York area, but not necessarily, right, Laura? You can still donate, support. And again, I'll have all the links so everybody can take their time and look at everything. But, this child protection requires resources. Lori, the number one thing I'm always hearing, lack of resources, right? So I am here to support PACT, to support you. We've got to get the public on board. When something works and we know creates change, we have to get behind that and help. So everybody, this is your call to action, your homework from the warriors to get behind PACT, to get behind Lori and her team. I promise you it's an extraordinary evening, because although it's a tough subject for a lot of people, right, Lori, we talk about that. It's an enlightening evening. When you see these success stories of survivors that will attend, it's just beautiful. So we're going to work the next few days very hard on promoting all. Because no single organization, Lori, can fight all this alone. We must collaborate. I know that word is used a lot. We must all come together. And I personally want to thank you for everything you've done for years, with all of this. It is not easy, but you've done a great job. I want you to finish up with what gives you hope, around all of these issues, because I know you're not stopping. I know you're going to keep going. Or I hope you're going to keep going, because we need you in this space. But what's giving you hope right now in 2026? We're halfway done almost with the year.
I am so in awe of our Survivors Council. They're smart, they're funny. I mentioned they're resilient, and they continue to teach me things every time I speak with them. And it's just such a joy to work with them and learn from them. The other thing that gives me hope is our youth advisory council. The young people, I have to admit, I am not the best person on technology. And so to have this this youth advisory council come in and talk to me about, like, really, what's the best way to make our social media posts so that other young people are getting the message? What's the best way to engage other people through online blogs? What's the best way to conduct interviews? I mean, it's just so fun, and they're creative and they're innovative, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to talk about this topic. They're not afraid to educate their peers. They're not afraid to speak their mind. And I feel really good about this younger generation. I think they're amazing.
I'm agreeing with that, because the young people, we have to learn from them what's going on with their peers, right? With their demos, with their age groups. And they are fearless, Lori, a lot of them, right? Like, I don't know. I was with some yesterday and I just but it was like infectious, their energy for me, because they are so fearless. And I'm like, wow, this is exactly what we need, because those are our future adults, our future American leaders too, right? So this is the kind of attitude we need to showcase and work with. So on that note, Lori Cohen, I am going to say to you, today's conversation with you, our discussion reminds me, and should remind everybody, that protecting children is not somebody else's responsibility. I believe it belongs to all of us. And the work, Lori, you're doing with your team at PACT is certainly, confronting trafficking, exploitation, abuse, supporting the survivors, putting them at the forefront, is where we will create the change. So every child can grow up safe, and free of all kinds of sexual exploitation. Again, the Freedom Awards, June 3rd, Warriors, everything will be in the body of this video. You will be inundated with information and links. So I want you to all take your time and read up about all the great work Lori and the team are doing. But Lori, as a friend, as a colleague, I want to say really a heartfelt thank you for willing to jump on with me. I know how busy you are, and your continued leadership. That's what's going to change everything going on, and your compassion and your commitment, your dedication. You're certainly a role model for me, and I adore you. So thank you. wearepact.org, everybody, is the website. Stay tuned, because I feel like Lori's got a lot of things coming up we just don't know about yet, but they're coming down the pike. I feel it, Lori. It's happening. And we're going to fight this together. We're going to fight this together. And together we can protect children. So promise me, Lori, you will definitely be coming back again, and we're going to keep continuing the discussion.
I'm looking forward to our next meeting already, Lynn. And I'm very excited to see you next Wednesday.
I was going to say, you'll be seeing me at the Freedom Awards. I will be there with bells and bows on. So, and so will a lot of people listening, because I'm going to tell everybody in the next few days they got to attend or support online. So thank you, Lori Cohen. We will definitely speak again soon.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Take care. And thanks you, everyone, who's listening. Bye.
Thanks, Lori.